So today we're diving into the topic of thought leadership, why you should care about it, and why you should consider becoming a thought leader in your industry, not only to brand yourself personally as a thought leader, but how this can help your product, your service, and your sales. So when I was researching and thinking deeply about this topic, I read a really funny article that said Forbes actually bestowed the title of most annoying business slang to the term thought leadership in the year 2013. So I apologize if this term hits you in an annoying way, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because I think it's that important. Reading a little bit further, this term actually goes back all the way till 1887 when a guy named Henry Ward Beecher coined the term. So the Oxford English Dictionary also goes ahead and defines thought leadership as intellectual influence and innovation or pioneering thinking. Blah, 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 right? I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why at Meet Edgar we think thought leadership is the biggest differentiator in your business and the way that you can take something that is just a passive community into being a really engaged and really tight-knit audience who is ready and willing to buy anything that you put out there, who is ready and willing to sing your praises from the rooftops and become what's known as a raving fan for you. Thought leadership truly is all about embracing your uniqueness. It's something that feels a little awkward to teach because I can't teach you about you. Only you can do that. And you're never really going to feel whole and confident about calling yourself a thought leader unless you actually take the time to do a little self-reflection on what your values are and what makes you unique. So I know telling you to go journal something might seem like a little bit of a funny business practice to be talking about today, but it's true that it's going to take that little self-reflection to make sure your personal brand aligns with all of your values. Because you see, thought leadership is all about taking a proven concept and putting your own spin on it. And how are you going to go ahead and put your own spin on a proven concept unless you know what that spin is? So take some time, if you haven't before, to write out some personal values and a personal mission statement. And these can be absolutely different from the ones that you've established for your business. Because as a thought leader, of course, it's going to go into how people see your business, but it's also, like I was saying, about personal branding. It's about digging really deep into your personal stories and seeing them as something that's happened for you rather than happened to you, because these stories happening for you every day, whether they're stories of struggle or triumph, this is how you are going to be able to carve out a unique niche in your industry, because your mess through these struggles and triumphs become your message as a thought leader. This is about sharing and weaving these stories into these established concepts in your industry. It's not like you have to reinvent the wheel to be a thought leader. So I don't want you to get down on yourself thinking, oh my gosh, I can never be a thought leader because I'm not someone who's invented something. That's not the point. It's making sure that we're telling our personal stories around these concepts so people who are actually going to resonate with our story over someone else's are able to process these concepts in a way that makes sense and relates to their life. Because the more aligned with your customer that you are, the more likely you can get these really tight bonds with them. And that's when those communities online start to be really meaningful, rather than just something you forget that you liked that page a couple years ago, right? And truly, our brains are wired to love stories. We love that story arc of a hero's journey, that zero to hero, beginning, middle, end structure fits in really well for how we actually relate to the world. So you need to give your followers a way to relate to your product or service. The way you do that in a thought leadership aspect is with your personal stories. So write out some of the more defining and personal stories that have happened in your life and think about how you can weave these into some concepts that might be able to hit someone in a way that they're like, wow, I've never thought about that perspective before. That's going to be showing your leadership. And that's truly what leadership is, right? It's showing people what is possible, and it's moving them to take action because you convince them that you've done this before, they relate to you, and you've done this before, so it's not a scary thing. And if you want to go ahead and have the outcome that you've achieved, that they can do it too. So think about the ways that as a leader, you can actually inspire someone to take action and make a change in their life through a story you can tell, and then apply it to a proven concept in your industry that you're trying to teach people. And it's not going to be comfortable. Let me tell you what, whenever we go into thought leadership spaces and introduce a new idea or a new concept, you're going to hit resistance. But truly, putting these stories and these new ideas out there is more important than you being scared of that resistance. I love the quote that your fear does not make you special. I know it sounds a little harsh, especially if you know me. I'm not really a harsh kind of girl. I'm much more of an inspirational kind of girl, but I really do think this is true. And this is something that holds a lot of us back from wanting to be thought leaders in our industry, is we think, oh, I'm so afraid, I can't do that. That doesn't make you special at all. We are all afraid. What does make you special is stepping up to that challenge. It is much easier to follow the status quo, but the world doesn't need the status quo. It needs you to step up on your platform and truly think about what you have today. You have social media platforms that are free places for you to get your thought leadership message out. It has never been easier in the history of the world to connect with people who need to hear your story. So think about that as a responsibility and think about using these social media platforms for good rather than just seeing them as a time suck, which many of us do. These are truly unique spaces that we can make a difference. And if you look at them in that right light, it's an amazing thing. It's kind of like this concept that no object or even like no platform like Facebook is inherently bad. It's not like Facebook is inherently terrible. You can go ahead and utilize the tool for good in your life. So step up and get outside of your comfort zone a little bit and make that growth happen for you. But truly, remember, this isn't about you. Your thought leadership is about making sure you are pushing the industry forward and gaining a little segment, a little niche in your industry that people think of you when they think of that thing. And if you hit resistance when you're first trying this out, know that that's okay. And that's actually a sign that you're doing things right. So resistance can be a sign you're doing things right, because if you have hit a concept that everyone agrees with, 100% of people are like, bravo, that is a perfect thing to say, that's not really thought leadership, right? You're not going to go ahead and get a concept out there that everyone loves if you're taking the time to put a unique spin on it. And that, again, is what is going to be differentiating the successful thought leaders from those who are just trying to please everyone. So remind yourself that when resistance hits, that's actually a really good sign that you've struck in the right course of action in your thought leadership there. And you really want to make sure that you don't lead people into something that everyone already agrees on anyway, because that's not going to get you a lot of attention. So what is it in your industry that you think about a little bit different? Or, what is it that might even sound a little polarizing to say, but you truly believe deeply in, and you truly see this aligning with your values? That is your secret sauce to your thought leadership and to your growth. So for most things, where does this start? It's about knowing your values, like I said, and not only your company values, but your personal values. And the coolest thing about the internet and finding that niche is that you can actually make sure that you're putting a message out there before you create a business. So if you're someone right now who is thinking, you know what, now this is a sign from the world that I need to start that business I've been thinking about, but you're not exactly sure which direction to go, you can start building an audience online before you build a business, 100%. A lot of course creators actually do this, and the fact that they title a course and they go ahead and make like the module outline, and before filming any of it, they'll actually go ahead and put that course for sale. They'll see the feedback, and if they actually get people signing up for the course, then they'll start filming it and putting it into action to actually make it. But they don't want to make it until they understand if there is some traction for people actually wanting to buy it. Because if you build out a whole 10-hour course and no one buys it, your 10 hours were kind of wasted, right? So that's also the beauty of being a thought leader online, is you can test out what messages are resonating first. And once you find something that's hit a little bit of traction, run with that and go all in there. So become acquainted with your values, journal about them, and make sure every message you're putting out there really follows that. But the messages themselves and the courses or whatever it is you're creating can be a little bit different. The beauty of being a thought leader truly shows up as well in Laura, who's the founder of Meet Edgar. It shows up in her story a lot because she was someone who put herself out there thinking about how social media can be used for businesses. And she was an educator first. She gained a community who truly latched on to the way she used social media in an evergreen fashion. And once she pivoted from being a course educator into being someone who is a SaaS CEO, her followers from her initial business and her initial community followed and purchased from her because 1,000,000% they trusted her message and her thought leadership. Again, what your business starts out to be today or what it is today might not be where it ends up, but your community members could still be with you. And that, again, goes into making sure your thought leadership message is true and unique to who you are, not necessarily to who your business is. So there's a subtle distinction there, but if you think about that a little bit, I promise it'll make some more sense to you. So become acquainted with your values, all of that fun stuff, and make sure that you're becoming really obsessed with your customer over being obsessed with your product or your service. Because that, again, is going to make sure that you're out caring others in your industry and that you're truly showing how passionate you are about your thought leadership. No one wants to follow someone who's just kind of lukewarm on the message they're putting out there, right? We want to follow people who are 100% passionate and bought into their own message. This idea of becoming obsessed with your customer, I actually learned this from one of the very first jobs that I had at a company called Craftsy. It's an online education company, and now they focus purely on like quilting and knitting and stuff like that. However, when they started, they actually started with finance classes. So they built this beautiful platform for online learning, and they thought they were going to teach people about finances. However, the more that they started doing this, the more that they started researching the industry, they realized there was a huge opportunity in crafting. Quilting is like $1 billion industry, apparently. Who knew? So when they made that pivot, it wasn't necessarily because they were really passionate about quilting themselves. The company was actually run by 4 men who had never picked up a quilting needle in their life. The reason they made that pivot is because they were listening to the customer base. So when you focus on your customer base rather than your product or service, it is 100% easier to have your thought leadership about your industry reach the right people. Going a little bit further on this, you really want to make sure that you're focusing your thought leadership on making an impact rather than making money. So with that example in the past, they realized that their platform could make a much bigger impact to this audience who was hungry to learn about crafting, right? Or in Laura's case, to this audience who was hungry to get a tool like she was using for her own social media business. So think about the ways that you can really focus your thought leadership on making an impact in your industry and becoming obsessed with your customers. And that is truly where the money is going to start to roll in if those two things are aligned. Now, honestly, it goes down to everything in life that practice makes perfect. So practice crafting your thought leadership message and know that this is the perfect time to do it because no one is expecting perfection right now, right? We are going through something as a collective human race right now that gives you a little bit of leniency to get out there now and start practicing doing things like getting your message out on live streams like this one. If you're not comfortable on camera, rest assured, no one is going to expect perfection. If you are on my live stream yesterday, you heard my dog barking up a storm when the doorbell rang. I had to get up and get it. That's okay. The life does not end. And that is a relatable experience that people working from home are going through right now. So don't let these little things hold you back from getting your message out there. And it's truly what the world is going to need from you the most is that thought leadership aspect over you just following the status quo. And really, the coolest thing about being a thought leader, I think, was summed up in a Forbes article that I read that said an individual or a firm has significantly more profits from being recognized from individuals in that company being recognized as thought leaders. So it's not necessarily that the company was recognized as a thought leader, or not necessarily even the CEO. It was other individuals in that company being seen as thought leaders in their own personal brand. So if you are someone who owns a company and has employees under you, empower them to be their own thought leaders in their roles. And this is going to attract more customers to you. And it's going to just position your brand as one that is going to be at the forefront of your entire business. So it truly is a really, really cool way for you to be able to not only get your own personal brand message out there, but to help with your companies as well. All right, so that was my little rant about thought leadership, and I'm so excited to hear what you think you do a little bit differently than others in your industry. Leave it in the comments below here, and I would love just to know how this works for you. Once you sit down and you kind of establish what your niche is going to be, what your values are, and all of that fun stuff, please let me know. It is always a treat to hear from you guys. You can either leave it in the comments of the video or go ahead and email support@meetedgar.com. I'm in the inbox all the time and would love to hear from you. Thanks so much. I hope you guys have a really happy Friday, and I will see you again next week.